Today's guest is living proof that one man's quest to save a few bucks on a ballpark fries can spiral into a full-blown baseball empire. Kurt Smith, creator of Ballpark E-Guides, writer for Jersey Man and Miami Man, and the unofficial patron saint of frugal fans everywhere. Once thought, once thought he knew everything about going to a game until he realized he'd been wasting enough money to fund a kid's college tuition. Since then, he's dedicated his life to helping the rest of us avoid overpriced parking, tragic seat choices, and cheesesteak regret. He has been to the yards, he has made mistakes, and he is here to make sure that you don't repeat them. Please welcome the man who can get you into the ballpark you didn't even know existed. Welcome, Kurt Smith.
Welcome, Kurt Smith.
Wow, that
Da 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 da
that
da da. Wow, that
that
was.
was quite the introduction, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna have to give him a
Thank you very
raise.
much.
Jeez, Kurt Smith. That was Jeff. I'm add a zero to your pay.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you ever want a Charleston chew, whenever I'm in town, I
All
got
right. Okay. So,
Well,
just before we went on air, you said you had a quick story that's kind of amusing. So, why don't you tell us that?
well, yeah, because I was listening to your interview yesterday with the author of Voices of the Game. I keep blanking
Kirk
on his last
McKnight.
name. Yeah,
McKnight.
yes. And he's telling stories about meeting and announcers, and it made me think of my time meeting Harry Callis. I was a bartender many years ago in a banquet hall, and the Phillies caravan, which is you know how the teams send their caravan out with a few players and the announcer to meet with fans and tell them about the upcoming season. The Phillies caravan stopped there. So, it was neat. Got to meet Mickey Morandini, and the Philly Fanatic was there, and Harry Callis was there. And this was 1997, so it was the first year of interleague play. And I walked up to Harry Callis, and I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he had this very big drawl in his voice. When he called games, it was perfect for the pace, but he had a very unusual way of speaking, and it really caught me off guard. I went to shake his hand, and I asked him if he was looking forward to going to Camden Yards. And he answers me, and he said, "Well, we finished the last two springs there. That's my favorite ballpark." And I walked away thinking, wow, he really talks like that. And then I thought about it for a second, and I thought, well, why wouldn't he talk like that? But it was pretty wild because he had a really unusual way of speaking, but it worked so well for baseball. He was very beloved in the city of Philadelphia. It was pretty sad when he passed away. I remember they had a very big memorial service for him at Citizens Bank Park, and it was pretty special. He was a longtime fixture in the city, and he was a great announcer. So it was cool that I got to meet him.
Kurt, I'm gonna take issue with both you and Jeff.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Yeah. The first thing, Jeff, is you found his site, and Kurt, you write your site.
Yes,
And your site is amazing. And
thank you.
why I take issue with both of you is because now I any free time I have is going to be spent on your site, which is Ballpark E-Guides, the insider fan guides to MLB ballparks. It's not just, I mean, you go to every ballpark, you have a blog here, you have all about the Major League Baseball teams, then you can go in the article, you could go further. For baseball fans, I want to know about every stadium that I'll never visit. I just
Well,
want to know.
I have to say I haven't covered them all yet. I'm currently up to 18. So I haven't been out to the West Coast ones yet. Adding a plane flight into it while raising two kids is a bit more of a challenge. I'll get there eventually, but yeah, I am up to 18. Just recently visited St. Louis last year, so I just added some content about Busch Stadium to the site. Um, yeah, it's a fun venture. It's not my full time gig. I would love for it to be. I'm a couple of years away from retiring from my full time job, so maybe once I reach that point, I'll be able to devote a whole lot more time to this. and make sure that the information is up to date, because it does, it's a lot. I have a lot of content on there, so some of it might be a little bit outdated, but I'm going to get things caught up when I can.
The website is ballpark. It's BALLPARKE guides.com. I guess you added the E in there. What's that about?
I'll tell you the story about the origin of it. When I first the idea came into my head, and I'm amazed that this little germ of an idea has turned into this massive site with over 150 some pages of content on it. But what happened was, I'll give you a quick background story. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, but my family were all Orioles fans. My family lived in Towson a couple of years when I was very young, and they all became fans of, this is the years of Brooks Robinson and Jim Palmer and all those, Frank Robinson, all those great Orioles players. And so they became Orioles fans. And so I grew up in the Philadelphia area as an Orioles fan, because this is what, who my family was rooting for. So I kind of had a little bit of a unique perspective, at least compared to, I don't know, a lot of people, I'm sure, root for teams in different cities than where they grow up. But we went to some games at Veterans Stadium, but we also went to quite a few games at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore. So I kind of had like an interesting perspective of, hey, baseball is better when it's played on grass. It's better when the ballpark is open. It's better when it's nicer to walk into a ballpark that's actually in a neighborhood and it's built with bricks. And I'm not trying to knock Veterans Stadium. I have a lot of great memories there. But I felt like it was so much better of a baseball experience. And it actually made me proud to be an Orioles fan too. That was like a part of the thing. Well, I could say, hey, my ballpark's better too, So when Camden Yards opened up, I started going there 4 or 5 times a year. And when I was going, Camden Yards being where it is, Memorial Stadium was kind of like in a not a suburban neighborhood, but it was just kind of a more greener area of Baltimore, as opposed to Camden Yards, which is, smack in the heart of the city. And one of the things that I learned was that it gives you some advantages. And I was finding cheaper parking garages, and I was picking out like the best seats for the best view of whether I wanted a view of the Bromo Seltzer Tower, or I wanted a straight ahead view of the warehouse, or I wanted to avoid that obstructed view of, if in Camden Yards is an example of, if you're sitting in the back rows of the lower level, the balcony is going to be over your head, which is nice on a hot day, but you're not going to be able to see the scoreboard. You're not going to be able to see the warehouse. You're not going to be able to see the skyline. Now, that might not matter to you. Maybe you're just there for a game or whatever. But these are the kinds of things that I learned about going to the games at Camden Yards. And so I thought to myself, it would be neat to write a book about different tips that could save people money at baseball stadiums, and just how to get their money's worth, and how to avoid certain pitfalls, mistakes that I've made. And so I started researching Citizens Bank Park in Philly, which is my home ballpark. It's about 15 minutes away from my house. And I literally spent a month learning things that I didn't know about my own home ballpark. I didn't know about half of the food items there. And Citizens Bank Park has such a great selection of food. I didn't know what a Schmitter sandwich was. They don't have Schmitters anymore, but that became my favorite food item at the park. I didn't know about the taxi crab shuttle from Chickies and Pete's. Maybe I should have known about that, but I didn't. I didn't know that you could bring your own food into the ballpark. I didn't know that. I didn't know about all the different avenues to buy tickets. I was just basically buying from the Phillies website. Back then, things like, this was a while ago, so back then things like StubHub were fairly new. StubHub and whatever your other options are, SeatGeek, Game Time. Those third-party sites were kind of new. Tickets were still paper. You could still buy them at the box office. Well, you could still do that, but they don't do the they do the paperless tickets now. So by this point, I'm like, well, I can't just do a book, because first off, it's going to take me so long to research this thing. And, by the time I get the thing done, it's going to be obsolete. Right. So I actually I reached out to a gentleman by the name of Joe Mock. He's the writer for a site, an excellent ballpark site called baseballparks.com. Fantastic site where he does reviews of major league, minor league ballpark. He's been to an insane amount of ballparks. And I reached out to him because he had written what I was hoping to do, like a guide to all the ballparks, and he'd published it and everything. So I reached out to him, and he actually gave me his phone number, and we spoke for a couple of hours. And he said, "Look, just write ebooks, just do ebooks." He said, because then you sell it and you get all the profit. So the reason it's called Ballpark E-Guides, and this is a way longer answer to the question, but the reason it's called Ballpark E-Guides is because it started out as a venture where I was selling ebooks. Back then, I had a lot more trouble getting the word out. I've gotten much better at being found in search engines, but the ebooks they were nice. I was proud of them, but they were so detailed, and it was a whole lot to stay on top of everything and maintain the website. And long story short, already long story, but to make it somewhat shorter, I eventually just decided to switch it over to a blog. But I retained the name. It's something of a brand if I decide to rebrand at some point. But Ballpark E-Guides it is, and maybe now the E just stands for everything that you want to know. But,
Extra gives you
Yes.
extra.
yeah, extra. There you go.
So as I was clicking on the links, and I know Leonard's going to like this, you have a page dedicated to the Ballpark E-Guide's top 10 ballpark foods that I've tried.
Ooh, I do like that.
I
That
know you
that
do.
that was not an easy page to write because that was a tough thing to call. I've tried a lot of different things. Uh, you know, um, we could go into a whole discussion about ballpark food, right? And the first thing I thought of though when I decided to put that thing together because I had so many pictures of food, and I thought this will be a nice thing just for people who like to look at pictures of food. And but the first thing I thought of was the Barrio nachos that I had in Cleveland. It was just this huge bowl of nachos. And Barrio is actually it's a local taco joint. They're not known for nachos. There's actually another stand that is known for nachos at Progressive Field called Momocho, and their nachos are very good. But this plate of Barrio nachos, and I remember just thinking every imaginable cool ingredient you could add to your nachos was on here. They had the green salsa, they had the three different kinds of cheese, they had the beans, they had the chicken, whatever, or the chorizo sausage or whatever, and it was just. You know how you sometimes have a meal that you just hate finishing. It was one of those things.
Hmm.
So, that was one of the things I thought of, and I didn't want to give too much weight to one ballpark doing that. But I will say Cleveland has an excellent food selection. They really they showcase the local restaurants very, very well. They do a lot of that, and I know you guys talk about barbecue a lot, and I kind of read up a little bit on all the things that I've written about the barbecue joints at ballparks. But one of the things that I love about the live baseball experience today is how you can sample tastes of the city, whatever city that you're in. Like in Philadelphia is a perfect example of that. They have something like four different kinds of cheesesteaks now. They have Campos, they have Tony Luke's, they have Uncle Charlie's, named for Charlie Manuel. They have the burnt ends cheesesteak that from Bull's Barbecue, and that's just one item. So anyway, I actually put that together because I thought people would like to look at pictures of ballpark food, and they might take issue with some of my ratings. Nobody has yet, but they might take issue with it and tell me why I'm wrong about it.
So earlier in our venture when we started this out, we actually did go down to Philadelphia. We were invited to meet Greg Luzinski. We sampled his food there. We had a great interview with him. But I see number two on your list here is platters. And I know
Yes.
Len and I need to get to Camden Yards to go to Boog Powell, at his place.
Well, you know what? It's funny you bring that up because it's a struggle for me to decide whether Boogs or Bowls is better. They're both really, really good. Boogs Barbecue, I think I gave a nod to that just because of we could have a discussion about just how much Camden Yards changed baseball, and I heard you talking to Kirk McKnight about Camden Yards, and I feel like Boog's Barbecue. I mean, don't get me wrong, the food is great, but I think it's just such a unique experience. It's such having Boog's Barbecue at a Baltimore Orioles game in Camden Yards. It's such a great here's your classic Baltimore experience, right? And I think that was one of the reasons that I wanted to include that. I mean, it's very good barbecue. Um, I also got to thinking about how when Camden Yards first opened, one of the unique features of it was this big barbecue stand with the former Orioles star greeting fans. But you could see it on telecasts whenever you'd see an Orioles game on TV. You would see in the outfield, you'd see that smoke coming out from Boogs out in the outfield. And it's a kind of a shame with that when the Orioles fell on hard times, you didn't see that smoke anymore because there weren't as many people in the ballpark. So I guess they just weren't cooking as much. Hopefully we'll see more smoke this year and there'll be a lot longer lines. But I thought about that because that's one of the things that really made Camden Yards stand out and made it so unique.
Okay, Kurt. So now I got to take issue because your food list. You're right. You said people might take issue. Two things, and I'm surprised Jeff didn't say anything. The first is, as Jeff did say, we did go to Citizens Bank Park, and I get it. You put the cheesesteak, Campo's heater as for Philly,
Hmm.
but you got to have Bull's barbecue. That was excellent. We
You
I
know,
cannot believe
it
how good
is.
it is.
It is, and it wasn't on purpose. I didn't purposely leave it out. And maybe because you've brought that up, maybe the next time I go to a Phillies game, I'll get myself a nice big platter, take a picture of it, and just throw that in there. All right, maybe it's my top 11. You're right. I think I did. I mentioned the Campos heater, and I think I mentioned a couple other things at Citizens Bank Park too. Federal Donuts, I think, is on that list. And so again, it might have been a thing where I just didn't want to give too much weight to one ballpark, and it wasn't meant to be a snub of Bulls for sure.
No, I'm just kidding with you, of course.
No, it's all
But
right. No,
but
that's
now,
that's that's a
hold on,
fair
Kurt.
criticism for sure.
Now we
That's
got one
definitely a fair
more.
criticism.
So, all right. Be it known that Jeff bleeds blue and orange. Okay,
Hmm.
let's face it.
Hmm.
And on this list, there are two from Yankee Stadium.
Ah.
Okay, two of them. You have at number 5 on this list is Halal Guy's Gyros from Yankee
Uh-huh.
Stadium. And then, or Gyros, or however
Hmm.
it is appropriate to say it. Then at number 8, you have Lobel's Pastrami Sandwich, also Yankee Stadium. And I don't see anything. And Jeff, how could you not take him to
I
task? There's
well,
nothing from Citizens Bank Park.
no, wait a minute. Wait,
There
time
is.
out. Time
Oh, there
out.
is?
I
Where?
don't know if they still have this
Oh,
at this
Rayo
point.
Steak at number 10.
City
Yes.
Field.
Yes,
We
the
City
round
Field.
just,
steak, that was
right.
phenomenal. That
City
was
We
a
Field.
just
delicious
made the
sandwich.
list.
And
We
there's also
just
the
made
Big
it.
Mott sticks. The Big Mott sticks. I don't know if they still have those at City Field there, but I did include the Big Mott sticks in one of my honorable mentions. And you know what? I will say that is also a fair criticism. If I have two items from Yankee Stadium in my top 10 and one from Citi Field. That probably isn't fair, because
No,
if
no.
you were to ask me, which ballparks have the best food, and I mentioned Cleveland earlier just because of how well they
Right.
showcase the local eateries. But Yankee Stadium and Citi Field, boy, it's like they're in a competition with each other.
Yeah.
And you can imagine, right? Two ballparks in New York City,
Sure.
and it, boy, both of them, they just tremendous selections. So many great, Citi Field has the Pat LaFrida steak sandwich. I probably could have mentioned that. They
You
have,
did very well, Kurt. You did
well, thank
very well with the
thank you. I know
list.
that's not like you said. Like you said, no, what you raised are both fair criticisms. Not having Bulls barbecue and not giving as much weight to Citi Field, and that's fair enough. Because I'll tell
It's
you, even Citi Field is the one ballpark that I've been to in this venture where even the generic items are really good. Even if you just get a Nathan's hot dog or a Pat LaFrida burger, I mean, even those are two pretty well known names in New York City for
yeah.
sure. And I noticed that in Citi Field, the condiment stands are actually they're actually better there than at most ballparks, which I found pretty interesting. I love the I love the onion relish. If you go to get a street hot dog in New York City, I love that red onion relish, and they
Hmm.
have that at Citi Field, which is
Mhm.
so I should have just mentioned that. I mean, shame on me for not for not picking up that one, but yeah, great catch on that.
So, Kirk, you said you've been to about 18 ballparks. I'm looking at the page where you said MLB teams, and I see I've been to a lot of these, not all of them. So, I wanted to ask you about the ones I have not been to, you have been
Okay.
to. So, Atlanta Braves, Truist Park. Tell us about Truist Park.
Well, I was kind of I was critical of Truist Park at first. And the reason I actually I had written an ebook about Turner Field, and I actually really liked Turner Field. I thought it was very baseball friendly. I thought the seating was very well arranged. Um, and this is one of the things that killed me about the Braves' moves to Cobb County. They actually cited a reason for leaving as that saying they actually said that there weren't viable public transportation options. Well, I guess they decided to move to a park where there aren't any public
Right.
transportation options. There are some. I'm not overrating it, but I remember the way you got to Turner Field was you could take any. There's two major MARTA routes on their public train system, and you could take a train from anywhere to Five Point Station, which was like the heart of it. And from there, just take the shuttle to the ballpark. And a lot of Braves fans did that. It was perfectly easy to do. It's a lot more convoluted now. And I would also add that, and I'm going to get to what I like about Truist Park in a bit, but I do think that the parking situation is not as good. The parking there is a lot of it is very distant from the ballpark, and you could be after the game if it's like a day game on a Sunday, you could be walking up a pretty long hill to where you parked if you parked in one of the cheaper spots. So there is that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I've learned to kind of appreciate the whole Battery area and how you can really turn a Braves game into a whole day adventure. But there are things, I my most popular ballparks by far, the most popular things I write about are Wrigley Field and Fenway Park, and I think it's mostly because people want to learn how to avoid obstructed views. But that's one of the things I try to do is okay, try to avoid stuff that I went through when you
Hmm.
when you're and in my seating guide for Truist Park, I commented on that it's kind of tricky to find seating that's close to the field with a decent view that doesn't cost a whole lot of money because a lot of that seating is premium seating. Now the Braves do have a lot of amenities that they'll give you with that premium seating. And if you can find a way to lock that in at a good price, and I do have a post about how to save money on Braves tickets. If you can find that at a decent price, you could have a really nice experience there. Um, So, that's one of the things. And I don't, I don't have it in front of me, but let me see if I could just pull it up real quick. I think the most important thing when you're looking for a seat at a Braves game now, as opposed to Turner Field, I think the most important thing is try to find a place where you can get some shade because I'm not sure why they didn't consider putting a dome in Atlanta, but it gets really crazy hot there. And if you're out there baking in the sun, now they did, and that's one of the advantages that I talk about of the top level, what you would call the 400 level. I'm not sure what they call it. I think they call it the terrace. But one of the advantages of that is the roof almost entirely covers it, and the roof over the top level almost entirely covers it, and you will really appreciate that on a hot day. So that's one thing I would tell you about Truist Park. Oh, here's a good one for you. If you park in the Battery section of Atlanta, they have two parking garages, the red and I think they're the red and the green garages. And if you park there and if you go there early and then you spend $50 in the stores there or the restaurants or whatever, all of those places in the Battery, which you could very easily do, they'll let you park there for free for the game, and that those parking lots are very, very close to the ballpark. So that's a nice little thing that the Braves do. Now I have a whole piece about all your other parking options, including I think some free options, and just what to be wary of. But that's one thing. If you're going to make a day of it and you're going to spend the day in the Battery in Atlanta, I would definitely recommend that. Just have dinner at the Fox Brothers Barbecue, wherever. I'm not sure if that's a part of the ballpark now, but if you have dinner there, that I think that counts as part of your $50 towards your parking, and then you get yourself a Braves T-shirt, and then your parking's free, and you're right there at the ballpark.
Good advice. Len?
There's
So
much more information on the site.
it is great.
Just
Kurt,
there's a lot of details, but I definitely I would definitely if you're going to Truist Park for a game, I would definitely recommend looking through the seating guide for sure, because finding a seat in the shade there is pretty important, and it actually faces in a different direction that most ballparks do. So it's the shade actually comes on the first base side as opposed to the third base side like at most ballparks. And in Atlanta, that definitely matters. So that would be one of the things I'd recommend going there.
Kirk, how long have you been doing this site?
I've been doing it now for close to 16 years. I started in early 2010. Well, yeah, I guess the site is about that old. It was
Okay,
it was very different when I first started. The site was just there to promote the ebooks,
right.
but now it's the site itself
Yeah.
is the entire venture here. So
Because I was
yes.
going to ask if you've had a stadium that you had put out close and trying to,
Well, yeah, there's Turner Field.
right. So
There's Turner
you had
Field.
a you had a book on that? You had an
Yeah, I had
ebook?
an ebook about that, and if you're interested, I'll show you how to. I'll send you a link after the show of how to get one. But yeah, I did have that, and I actually, for some silly reason, I'm not sure why I did it, but I remember researching Sun Life Stadium in Miami, and I was just curious about what it's like to go see a baseball game in a football stadium. But shortly after I started doing that, they announced that they were going to be opening up the new ballpark in Miami. Um, Other than that, the big challenge for me, other than that, is when they redo a seating area like they're doing in Camden Yards this year. So I'm going to have to get there early and get a lot of pictures. So I need to at some point get back to Detroit and Toronto. A lot of this stuff changes all the time, and I try and stay on top of it. It's obviously a challenge, and I do what I can. Hopefully, much of the stuff there is still evergreen. But yeah, that's the big challenge. If a ballpark closes, it's like, oh well, this is this is what I got to deal with. I've written about Tropicana Field and I expect that's probably going to be replaced in a couple of years. So that's, I can talk my wife into another Florida vacation, and we'll just make a little side trip to Tampa Bay.
I've heard that the St. Louis Cardinals fans are the nicest fans, the most respectful fans in the world. So, from your point of
Nicer than
view,
Philly?
your point of view, which one is the most obnoxious?
You
Oh,
know, I I live in the Philadelphia area, and I could tell you stories about Philadelphia fans. And I will tell you that they are. I I'm not one to talk badly about Philadelphia fans or New York fans. I mean, I've had good and bad experiences in every city. I could tell you stories just because I live in the Philadelphia area, and so I could tell you a bunch of stories. I did write a piece. I'm not sure if I've kept it on the website, but I did write a piece about the whole Santa Claus thing. I'm sure
Ah,
you've heard the story about
oh yeah.
Eagles fans throwing snowballs at Santa Claus,
Yep.
and that's actually a pretty interesting story. And if you know that story, you read it and it's like, yeah, this could have happened anywhere. I don't think it's necessarily just because Philly fans are so horrible, but
Mm,
I could tell you some humorous stories about but I'd have to use language that you probably wouldn't you wouldn't share in the air.
right.
Um, you talked about St. Louis fans being the nicest fans. I visited St. Louis last year, and I was kind of bemused at the general attitude towards the team now, and because the St. Louis Cardinals haven't won the World Series since 2011, and so there's a lot of impatience, I'll say, growing in that town, and it kind of made me laugh because I'm thinking to myself, geez, try being an Orioles fan. We're up to 43 years and counting, but I guess everything's a matter of perspective. And I think when you get, you look at Yankees fans, right? I mean, anything less than winning the World Series is a failure of a season. And when you get used to that level of a success, it's I don't want to use the word spoiled, but I guess it's kind of like tougher to go through it on some level. And then you get the Orioles fans and the Kansas City fans and the Pittsburgh fans that when their team is finally good, it's such a joyous occasion that, and it's so I was kind of amused by that. Like you said, very nice people. I certainly didn't. I don't remember having any bad experiences while I was there, but I was when you brought that up, it made me think of the general consensus around the city about the team's lack of titles in the last, but they have won 11 of them. So I guess they feel bad for their kids for for not seeing a flag fly over Bush Stadium for a while. So I kind of get that, but yeah, I mean, I've had people treat me very well wearing Orioles gear in rival cities. As a matter of fact, Toronto. I've gone to I think 3 or 4 games in Toronto where they were playing the Orioles, and I go there wearing my Orioles gear and everything, and never had a single problem. Just people, and Toronto's got a little bit of a bad rep after
Mhm.
that incident against the Rangers in that one playoff series where
Sure.
there was trash thrown on the field and everything. So they've got a little bit of a bad rap for that. But I never had a single problem when I was there. And oddly enough, I'll tell you a quick story about, and I might get a little bit off color. Hopefully that's not a problem. But in 2018, when the Orioles were very bad, early in the season, I went to an Orioles game in Yankee Stadium. And I was in the restaurant in the outfield, and I'm standing there during the national anthem. There's all these Yankee fans surrounding me, standing up, hand on their heart, and everybody's doing it. So, in Baltimore, when you get to that, oh, say does that, everybody shouts the big, well, I'm standing in this restaurant full of Yankees, inside this restaurant full of Yankees fans. Of course, I got to do it, right? I'm like, oh, really loud. And everybody in the restaurant turns and looks at me. And I'm just like, what? you know, but nobody said anything. Nobody gave me a hard time or anything like that. And the Orioles won the game. One of the very small number of games they won that year. Um, After the game, I got on the D train full of Yankees fans. There's like two other Orioles fans on the train, but I'm getting on the D train going back into Manhattan, and this one gentleman approaches me. He's standing next to me, and he says, "I don't think I want to be standing near you, man. You got all this Orioles stuff on." He's like, "Man, you must have some watermelon balls, man." And I ended up having a really nice conversation with that gentleman, because he was around my age, so we were talking about the great Orioles teams of the '70s, the great Yankees teams of the '70s. So it actually was an enjoyable experience. So I would say I've never had a problem in Yankee Stadium either, incredible as that may seem.
Jeff, what is it you always say? The Cleveland, well, now Guardians were Indians. The Brooklyn Dodgers have a World
A
Series
more recent
championship.
World Series, yes, than the
Right,
Cleveland team.
right,
Yes.
right.
The Brooklyn Dodgers. I'm sorry, what?
The Brooklyn Dodgers have a more recent World Series than the Cleveland Indians/Guardians.
Right.
It was so remarkable to me that after the 2016 World Series, one of the greatest World Series ever, and it was a shame that somebody had to lose. And I'm just thinking, wow, I finally got to see this. I finally got to see the Cubs win the World Series, and now the longest drought in baseball belongs to the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah.
So it was just that was a pretty remarkable thing to see those teams meet in the World Series. I'd like to see Cleveland win a title. I'd like to see that. You talk about your long suffering fans. It's they talked about the Cubs and the heartbreak and the Red Sox curse. Well, we've got a few Cleveland fans that have just entered the chat here,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I really like Progressive Field. I think it's a great ballpark. I'm also something of a member of the Bob Feller Active Valor Award Foundation, which named after Cleveland's greatest pitcher, obviously. But Bob Feller wasn't just a great pitcher; he was also a war hero, right?
Sure.
He was in World War II, and he actually was on 18 combat missions. And a gentleman by the name of Peter Fertig, who is running the foundation, reached out to me. And I'm not quite sure why he reached out to me, but he and I sort of collaborated, and he started this foundation. And I wrote a little piece talking about the greatest Indian and Bob Feller, and why he was not just the greatest player that the Indians ever had, but also, just one of our great war heroes. And so this award is designed. They honor one baseball player every season, one current baseball player who does the most for the military, does the most to show respect and to honor the military. And they also give the award to one military member, and they also give it to one former retired baseball player. So that's a really neat thing that's kind of come out of and me. I'm just kind of like, I wouldn't say I'm a big part of that now, but it's one of the many things that have come out of this that has just been a great experience for me. I went to their presentation again a little while ago, and I got to meet Al Bumbry and Raleigh Fingers and Rick Monday. So all that stuff it's doing this has opened a lot of doors for me to do a lot of cool things. So it's great.
That is terrific. We need you to get the remaining stadiums in there.
I'll do my best.
Yes, I know.
My tax person told me the same thing. Do more ballpark trips.
So once again, I'm going to give everybody it's ballparkeguides.com, and baseball fans, you're going to really love all of the things. When you go to a stadium, Kurt,
Mm-hmm.
you focus on certain things at the stadium, but then I'm sure each stadium has certain things you focus on more than others or instead of.
Yes and no. Certainly a place like Fenway Park, I focus a lot on the obstructed views and how to avoid them. I try to I don't want to totally bog people down with it, because you can get really scientific about it, but I try to come up with general rules and say, okay, try to get something, above row 5, but not as high, not higher than row 12, and get something in the middle because most of the poles are on the end. I don't know that you're going to completely avoid having an obstructed view of something, but that's kind of the thing. Like with Fenway Park, I'll focus on that. I was just talking about Atlanta, how important it is to find shade when you're looking for a seat. Um, and but mostly I try to cover everything. Yankee Stadium and City Field, obviously better to use public transit to get to the game than it is to drive and park. But Philadelphia Citizens Bank Park, I would say driving and parking is better. So I might focus more on the preferred method of transportation to get there, but I do try to cover everything.
Kurt, tell us, I mentioned in the opening that you're frugal. So tell us some of your money saving tips for us people who go to ball games. I can tell you right now, that I found out that City Field's parking went up to $50. So I need to find a different.
$50?
Yeah, it's $50 now.
Kurt,
Well,
you hear that? $50 to park your
well,
car?
not just that. If you're coming from New Jersey like I am,
Ooh.
you're paying the turnpike tolls, you're paying the bridge tolls. You're sitting in. If you try and go through Manhattan like we did the last time I wrote, I went to a game at Citi Field with a friend of mine who's also an Orioles fan. We went to see the Orioles play there, and he decided to just plug it in. I said, "Look, man, we should really take the train. We should really just like not try to drive there. We should take the train. It's much easier." For some reason, he didn't want to listen to me. Don't ask me why, but he decided we'll ride in his car, and we spent probably an hour just sitting in Manhattan. So just crossing over the bridge and then just sitting in Manhattan. So I've covered a lot of how to get there by public transit. I'm a big fan of the Long Island Railroad coming from New Jersey. Where are you coming from, Jeff?
Well, both of us are on Long Island, so we would use Long Island Railroad, but we got to
Yeah,
go to a different branch. So what I
yeah, I
would
hear
do,
you.
I would drive to Bayside, Queens, where I used to live,
Hmm.
and catch a train there because that goes straight to City Field.
Yeah, yeah, and it isn't even so much the price of the parking, although obviously that's obviously a big thing, but it isn't even so much that it's just the traffic getting there. There's kind of one major road, and I haven't written a City Field parking guide yet, but I do have the information up here. Some point I'll put it together. But there's kind of basically just one major road that goes from the interstate to City Field, and we found this out the first time I went there, and traffic backs up there pretty bad. You mentioned parking. I will tell you there is some free parking if you go west of the ballpark and across. I don't know. It's a numbered street, but I couldn't tell you the exact number. It's 168th, I think, or
Hmm.
something like that. But anyway, there's a numbered street west of the ballpark. And the last I checked, I don't know if it's changed since then. You never know when they start enforcing this stuff. But it was free to park on that street. And there's a bunch of side streets that are adjoin that street, and it's not much further than the parking lot, the parking lot that people are paying $50 to use. So I wouldn't leave a Mercedes there, but that's one option if you're looking for cheaper parking. There's also up the road, up Roosevelt Avenue. Well, I think it's Roosevelt Avenue that the 7 train
Yes.
travels along. Up that road a couple of blocks, there's much cheaper parking.
Hmm.
It was $10 the last time I was there. I'm sure it's more than that now, but it's certainly I don't think it's 50. I think you could probably park there probably for $20, $25 maybe. So yeah, there are cheaper parking options, but like I said, I mean, I I wouldn't drive to City Field unless maybe I was taking my entire family plus a few other people and just didn't want to pay for the New Jersey Transit train, which is pretty expensive. One other thing, here's a favorite parking hack of mine, and I think this is still in effect. And there's some cities where you can do this. I'm not sure if Philadelphia is one, but I know in Queens you can do this. When they first opened City Field, the Southfield parking lot, which is normally a commuter lot, the price of parking on game days went up to whatever the price of parking for Mets games was. I think it was like $20 at the time, and there was a big uproar about it. So what they did was they don't start the game rate until I guess it's noon. I want to say it's noon for night games, or and 9 o'clock for day games. So if you're going there for a day game and you get there early enough, say like 8:30 or so, you park there for whatever the going commuter rate is, which I think is like $6 or something like that. Whatever you can. I mean, I don't know how you would pass the time around there unless you need a muffler or something at Citi Field. But
Well, they are actually making a nice. They're building it
yeah,
now, a
they
new
are
area
building.
there.
They are
Yeah,
building up around. I know there's
yeah,
going to be a casino there
yeah.
soon, but my point is, no, I mean, there's a nice little park there, Corona. What's it called? Flushing Corona
Flushing,
Meadows or
Flushing Meadow
whatever.
Park, Flushing
That's
Meadow
a
Park.
nice little place to walk around. But I
Yep.
mean, if you're doing that for a night game, maybe you get there at 11 o'clock and you're not dealing with the ball game traffic. You take a train into Manhattan and visit Manhattan for a little while. You come back and your car is right there at the ballpark and you've paid whatever $6, $7 for whatever to park for the game. I've
Hmm.
done that in a few cities. I know that you can do that in Detroit. I've done that a couple of times in Detroit, where you park close to the ballpark before the game rate kicks in. I've done it in Cincinnati. I remember that well. I parked right there at the ballpark, and I just beat the game rate, which was like $25. I got there. I parked in there for like five. They have a little streetcar now in Cincinnati, and I took that to the Findlay Market, picked up a couple of goodies from my goodie bag, and saved a bunch of money parking. And after the game, my car was right there. So that's a parking hack that I'll recommend for Citi Field and a few other ballparks. I'm checking to see if I can do that in Philly. I'm not positive of that yet, but yeah, that's one thing you can look into. And if it's there, if you can do it, I'll mention it on my site.
Okay.
Well, we'll look for it because $50 is insane.
Yeah,
It was 40 last season, and we thought $40 is crazy. It doesn't even go up to 45. I mean, it has to go up to $50.
make sure you let Bo Bichette know about that, right?
Yeah,
You're paying for his new
Exactly.
contract. Yeah,
true.
but
Yeah,
that is
that
it. That is. It's just. It's like, like a few years from now, it'll probably be 60, and it's just. I've
yeah.
seen $60 parking at Fenway Park where it wasn't even close to the ballpark, and I think sometimes for a ballpark like Fenway, and I think you might see this in other places where it's tough to find parking for the ballpark, like in a place like Toronto or maybe Yankee Stadium. If it's like in the heart of a city and it's tough to find a place to park, you'll see places that are taking advantage of that. Like I remember seeing a garage at Fenway Park that was charging $60. It wasn't even within a half mile of the ballpark, and I remember thinking, I think that's a thing where they take advantage of people that are just passing through, and they think they need to grab a spot right away. And this is one of the things that I'm hoping to help people avoid, because I certainly don't want to pay $50 for parking. I'm sure nobody else does. So I have actually seen free street side parking at Fenway that was just like a block away from a $50 lot. If you search a little bit, and I try to provide whatever kind of details I can for something like that. If you search a little bit, and if you're familiar with the area, you can find free parking or very cheap parking or some kind of alternative where you'll save a lot of money on parking.
What about saving money on tickets?
Um, Shop around, definitely. I actually just got finished posting a piece about how to save money on Phillies tickets. Phillies tickets, very hot commodity right now. The Phillies are good. I went to a Tuesday night game last year in August against the Mariners, and the place was still packed, and it was still raucous and loud. So um, there's a lot of things you can do to find cheaper tickets. And one of the things I always recommend people do, and probably most people do this, but I don't know if they take it for granted or not, but always get the team's ticket alerts by email, always sign up for that. There'll be things like I just got an email from I think it was the Nationals where they were waiving ticket fees for a few days. They might say, "Hey, no fees for the next few days," and that's significant. Those fees aren't small. That's a
Oh yeah,
significant.
but those fees are just I'm gonna keep it clean. Like that's BS. I mean,
I
those fees are
100%.
really
I agree.
stupid.
I
Yeah,
agree 100%. And
yeah,
anytime I can avoid them, I can.
sure.
If you go to the box office, most of the time they don't charge the fees. They might charge a smaller fee on game day. I know a lot of teams do that, but and I live in Philly area. It's easy for me to just head over to the box office and get tickets. I would also say it depends. The price of the tickets depends a lot on who the team is playing. It depends on the time of year. It depends on the day of the week. And all of those things are things you can factor into your decision. I always tell people to shop around. Game Time is an affiliate of mine, so I recommend them to people. Um, I like Game Time for reasons that I've talked about on the site, but you can. I sometimes recommend that you check at the last minute, like maybe 2 hours out before the game. But you can't always count on that, especially if it's a high demand game. But choosing a low demand game, buying at the box office, using the weather is a good one. I actually learned that from a instructor I had in college. She told me that she would, on really really hot days, or days that were like threatening with rain or something like that, she would check the third party sites and she would get a ticket to go to the Phillies game. And you might even find, I've noticed this at times, you might even find tickets that give you access to the clubs at a cheaper price than what you'd normally pay for them.
Mhm.
But I would say, if you do want to see a high value opponent, like if you want to see the Phillies play the Yankees, uh, and you're paying attention to that newsletter and you're getting those newsletter alerts, it definitely helps to plan ahead. The team might, like the Phillies right now are offering 3 packs where you can get a three game pack where they're playing against the Yankees. Excuse me, and you're paying face price for those tickets. Well, if you go to the third party price for those tickets, or you pay the dynamic pricing markup or whatever that is, it's going to be a lot more than that. So I think in a lot of cases, face price will be the best deal you can get for such games. You might now, in some cases, you might want to go to opening day and maybe you buy um, the two other low value games that go with it. But that's one thing you could do. But I always tell people pay attention to that newsletter, pay attention to those alerts because the teams do offer some pretty good deals. If the higher the demand a team is, the harder it is to find. But you will find something in those newsletters. There's also um, check a team's community page because sometimes a team like the Mets, I believe, are still doing this. They have a coat drive at the beginning before winter starts every year, and if you donate a coat, I think you get 2 tickets for a game. I can't promise they're still doing that.
They
Um,
are. They are.
yeah, there you
If,
go.
if you see,
My
if
man, my man. Love the way you
I
think.
I did go to
Love
a
it.
book drive and I dropped off books and I got a ticket voucher for a game this year.
It never hurts to check the community page of a team's website if you can. Some of the teams, not a lot of them, but some teams have community newsletters, and I'll always sign up for those. Never know, and it's a chance to help your fellow man and your whatever, help people out and get some tickets to a ball game to go with it. In the past, I don't know if the Phillies are still doing this, but in the past they would let you see the game for free. You didn't actually get a seat, but you got in for free, and you between innings you picked up trash in the concourse area. You walked around, you picked up trash. They call it like their Red Goes Green initiative. But they'd give you a hot dog and get to see a game for free.
Hmm.
So that's one way to do it. There's quite a few ways where you can save money on tickets. If you know season ticket holders, by all means, I mean, if you don't mind, however, whatever perk irks, whatever. I'm trying to think of the right word here. Whatever it takes to befriend a season ticket holder, if it doesn't bother you too much. But season ticket holders get a lot of benefits, and one of them I found in the Phillies case is that they they can buy single game tickets before they go on sale to the rest of the public. And I'm not sure if they still pay fees on those. I'm guessing they probably do, but that's your opportunity to get, you know, the best possible seats at face price. If you know a season ticket holder, you can ask them about that. Ask them if that's one of the benefits. And buying from season ticket holders is also I recommend Facebook groups, but I also say be real careful with that because they don't have a they usually have checks in place, but I would say you have to get to really know the person that you're buying from first.
Hmm.
But if you can get tickets from a season ticket holder, I did one time do that. I just bought it on StubHub, but it was a season ticket holder, and I ended up getting access to the Highball Club. I don't know what it's called now, but it was the Highball Club at the time, the restaurant in left field. I had access to all these places that I never had access to before, and I only paid like something like $30 for the ticket. So check with season ticket holders if you know any of them, and pay attention to your newsletter and shop around. Shop around.
Okay.
Definitely don't just pay what the team's asking because a lot of times you may be able to find something better, especially for a low demand game.
Hmm.
So does that help a little bit?
Oh
Or
yeah, absolutely.
you got your coat drive, but
Yeah.
you were on top of that. But
Yeah. Len?
so there's if you know all the options, and that's what I try to do is
Hmm.
present all the options, show you how they can be beneficial. There's team fan clubs, kids fan clubs. Those often include a ticket for the kids. So that's another thing. You could have the kids join the fan clubs, all kinds of things like that.
Lastly, before we let you go, I've been to about I don't know about 20 ballparks, trying to
Hmm.
get to all of them just like you. Besides City Field, because I gotta leave that one out. Uh, PNC Park is the nicest park I've been to. I love PNC Park. Took a trip out there, saw a couple of Mets games. They got killed in both those games years ago, but went to a day game and went to a night game, and it was just a beautiful experience at PNC Park. What is your favorite ballpark?
It's really I'm biased as an Orioles fan. So Camden Yards, I'm like you, right? Camden Yards is my favorite place to watch a game just because that's where my team plays.
Sure.
But it's also just a fantastic ballpark in every way. But I think I might be with you on that. I think as far as just the just a great visual experience,
Hmm.
PNC Park, and it's just so I also will tell you, they really did it right as far as the way they arranged the seating bowl and the way they made parking accessible and how you can park across the river and walk across the bridge to the
Yep.
ballpark. They've also actually pretty decent transit to get to the ballpark. If you want to just take a train there, you can do it for free from inside the city, and the train drops you right off at the ballpark. But I think the seating bowl, the way they arranged that, so that they really did a nice job with the sight lines, and that's one thing I'm noticing as I do this is that a lot of teams in their newer ballparks since Camden Yards opened, the Yankees are one, the Nationals, the Brewers. They put a lot of really, really high seats in their ballpark. Like the Yankees, you've been to Yankee Stadium, I'm sure. You've seen how
Yes.
high the seats can be up
Sure.
there. Nationals Park is very, very high seat, and most of them, even like Citizens Bank Park, the high sections are really, really high. Now they do a better job of being on top of the action because it's a little steeper and everything, but I'm not a big fan of sitting up really high at a ballpark, and my wife certainly isn't a big fan of that. And I think at PNC they really did a nice job. Same with Camden, they did a nice job of bringing the seats close to the field.
Hmm.
Someday, if you're kind enough to have me on again, we could talk about Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati and why I think it's might be the most underrated ballpark in baseball. But I don't want to. You guys have other guests, I'm sure, so maybe we can save that
We
discussion
would
for another
love to
time.
have you back, and I've been to Cincinnati. I love that ballpark as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Len, you have any final words?
I just want to tell everybody the site is amazing. Jeff, give the site, please. I'm tired of giving it. Not tired, but we need a new voice to give it.
Okay, it is ballparkeguides.com. Check it out. There's over what you say 150 pages you can go through, but it is just a wonderful site for anybody who's planning to go to a ball game, out of town game, and check it out. A lot of great advice here. Kurt, thank you for joining us on Baseball and BBQ.
Thanks so much for having me on, gentlemen. I really enjoyed it, and it was a real pleasure. Thanks so
Thank you,
much. I
Kurt.
appreciate it. And thanks for your kind words.
Thank you
It's really
for.
nice of you to say.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for all the hard work that you put into that site, so that people like us can learn, enjoy, and take a lot from it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoy it. Glad you enjoy it.